Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. All right, I'm here with economist Lindsay Tedds from the University of Calgary. It is Festivus season, so I figured we would air some grievances, and one of them being the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the quality of some of the reports he's put out. Other economists talk about things like the random use of distributional analysis or strange methodologies that came from interesting places. And I know you had one pet peeve in particular, so I figured I'd let you kind of rant for a bit.
Yeah, I shouldn't say you recently, you reminded me of a recent report that they did on the costing of the Canada Disability Benefit,
Yes.
I say I don't often get irritated, but I actually get irritated very often. And the release of that report really, really irritated me. I've been working with Disability Without Poverty for several years now on trying to get people to understand that when you're engaging in fiscal policy for a group of a group of society that has a very, very unique set of circumstances, with very unique lived experiences. You have to engage in fiscal policy in a very, very different way, right? This is not about costing for children, right?
Yeah.
Which has, that one's a different sort of set of understanding where you can kind of put that on a horizontal and vertical kind of perspective. Here we're talking about living life in a very, very different way.
Mhm.
Whether you're born with a condition, or you're born with a ticking time clock, or or something has happened to you in life where you now encounter life in a dramatically different way. And it's really hard to explain to people who don't have any sort of disability, whether it be, observable or hidden, what it's
Mhm.
like to navigate life with that kind of disability. And so, the Parliamentary Budget Office decided that this was a fiscal exercise.
Yes.
It's not. Right. And so they just went off and they did some assumptions. So they did three models,
Yeah.
two of which were based off of eligibility based off the disability tax credit. Those two models should have never been done at
Okay.
all, because there is no one in the disability community who would have ever, had they been consulted, which the Parliamentary Budget Office should know, you have to consult. This is nothing about us without us. You don't do this kind of modeling without consultation, right? And
Yeah.
had they even read all of the submissions for the groups, they would have known not to do that. But because the Department of Finance pushes some sort of idea through, they think that that's a valid model. So they did two models based off of the DTC as being the eligibility threshold, which provides fodder for the Department of Finance to base the Canada Disability Benefit off the DTC. And that it's a non-starter, it's a no-go, and it should have never appeared in the Parliamentary Budget Officer modeling. Okay. So
Yeah.
that, like, the fact that they even thought that that was a starter demonstrates just a lack of fundamental understanding of what the Canada Disability Benefit is meant to do, and the expectations of the community of what the Canada Disability Benefit has to be.
Yeah.
And then and then also within that, they decided to dabble around with the family versus the individual unit. In the disability community, this is a non-starter. This you're not a person with a disability who then their family gets to take financial responsibility for them. This is about independence, being able to independently have a life and not have to beg, borrow, and steal for your family, to be an independent individual in
Yeah.
society. Like, I'm not laughing because this is funny. This should
But it's
not
just,
have to be argued.
yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, and the fact that they even thought that that was something that was even up for debate, again, just demonstrates a lack of, again, understanding of this issue. So there was really only one model that was even in the spectrum of reality for the Canada Disability Benefit. And again, had they gone out and done any sort of work with the community, with a very rich data set that they have access to, that
Yeah.
nobody else has access to, right? They could
Yeah.
have actually worked with the disability community. The community has been begging to have access to data like this. This could have been a real watershed moment for this community. We could have done some excellent modeling that could have taken us not through two models that were non-starters. We could have done, within that one model that was in the realm of reality, could have portrayed models that were, instead of being 22 billion, we could have done ones from 10 to 50 billion, showing the range of things that were more in the realm of reality for the disability community. And then it would have been helpful. What we have now is a PBO report that gives the Department of Finance fodder to plow through with what it wants, which is a disability benefit modeled off the DTC, which is about 2.2 to 3.3 billion. And if I see that in budget 2024, I swear to God, like, I'm good. I like, you want, like,
Yeah.
I swear to God, it's all.
You'll get on a plane and you will come in and let them know.
Well, I'll let the disability groups do the, but I will give them all the fodder that they need.
For sure.
But without a doubt, like, I'm really hoping what now needs to happen, and I hope that this is happening, is parliamentary MPs need to be giving very clear direction to the Parliamentary Budget Office of the kinds of modeling that they should have done in the first place. Nobody else can do that now. Hands are tied.
Yeah.
I've said my piece, but I can't direct the PBO. It's done. And so MPs had better be doing what they should be doing, including the minister responsible. But I don't see that happening. And I'm getting very concerned about the Liberal government in terms of raising expectations of the disability community and then just completely sort of washing their hands of it, as they seem to do extremely well, especially these days.
Yeah, no, for sure. So kind of bringing us back to where we started here. I get the sense that a lot of these reports tend to be done fairly superficially. And another one that I know you had a lot of reaction to was the report on the basic income that he also modeled, which was essentially stripping other disability programs and so on as part of this. And I guess just like where do I'm finding it hard to figure out like how these reports can at all be useful other than just for MPs to or senators in that in the case of the disability or the basic income, to just kind of use that as a cudgel.
Well, I mean, it's a fundamental lack of understanding of program details, right? I mean, and you see this like in the PEI basic income report. I mean, even we fell victim to it at the BC basic income panel. You know, and that's because, I mean, although we didn't do it as badly as happens at the federal level. I mean, these guys, they just take these guys. They take they just go through a list of programs without bothering to understand the details. At least we understood the details at the BC Basic Income Panel. In fact, we understood the details into a minutia that I will probably never forget. Right? Okay, so they go, oh, you know, social assistance at the provincial level. Oh, you know, we don't like it. We'll take that away. We'll take this away. We'll take that away. And we'll design this basic income program. And then those of us who know the detail go through that list and we go, okay, so you think you've made everybody better off. Let me go through the list and tell you who you've made worse off.
Yeah.
Right. And so that, and you know, we've, and hopefully we'll be able to, I mean, we have a working paper out, but we're hoping we're going to be able to get it published. You know, we did this in the territory of Nunavut. We can get rid of income assistance and give everybody a basic income. And we're going to make 30% of the population better off. Yes, we've made 70% of the population. No, what did I say? We can make like 60 to 70% of the population better off, and we can make 30 to 40% of the population worse off. Much worse off.
Yeah.
So what's the let's really talk about this trade-off, because when we're talking about making people better off, we're making them better off maybe $1,000 or $2,000, and then people who are making worse off, we're talking about $8,000 worse off. So, like, I mean, when you make people worse off, you're making the worst of the worst off worse off.
Yeah.
By magnitudes of worse off.
Yeah.
So we really need to start thinking about, like, the advantage of targeted programs is that we can make the people in society that are the absolute worst off, not like, you know, rich, but, you know, we can do a very good job without making and we can make other people better off without making the worst off worse off.
Yeah.
We can do that. Do programs need to be stigmatizing? Absolutely not. That's a policy choice.
Yeah.
My question is, how in the world are we going to have a program that is universal and not stigmatizing when we have all these programs that are stigmatizing? Like, I fundamentally don't understand, how is it that we can immediately cut all these programs? And we faced that in BC, right? We had a government that was like, yeah, you know, let's do a basic income. And I'm like, okay, so why don't we work towards that? Let's get rid of the asset test in the income assistance program. And then, you know, all we get is, whoa, well, if we did that, how do we know that some rich person with a lot of assets and no income won't apply for income assistance? Okay, so basic income doesn't have an asset test.
Yeah.
So why aren't you worried about it there? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. So, you know, right? So everybody who's like all gung-ho about a basic income, I know as soon as you start with program design, if you notice in the basic income world, we're not talking about implementation yet, right? We're all talking about this fluffy, oh, it's such a great idea. The federal government should do it. And all these like right-wing governments are all like, yeah, let's get the federal government to do it. Like, they're all behind it, right? But we've not gotten to the shove part, right? We're just pushing, but we're not shoving yet. And as soon as we get to shove and we actually have to get to program design, we're going to get to this problem. So it's one thing for the PBO to go through all of this and say, this is what we're going to do. It's a whole other kettle of fish to get the people to get rid of those programs without saying, oh, you know, we need an asset test. Oh, you know, we've got to check everybody's bank accounts to make sure they're not, you know, winning money on scratchers, which I got to tell you comes up more often than not. We got to check money in people's account because they make money on scratchers. I don't care if they make $50 a month on scratchers. Like, this is not the biggest problems in the world.
Yeah.
So this is what I know from being on the ground, trying to do all of this stuff. This is the stuff that comes up. So, PBO, keep doing your modeling. I work with SPSDM all the time, but I also work with people. And it's the people part that's the hard part. It's not programming in C++ and SPSDM.
Yeah,
Sorry.
for sure. All right, and we've got one more grievance for you to air. This government's inability to do GBA plus analysis. I've written a column a few months ago, where after the Auditor General spanked the government yet again over this. I figured I'll give you one more chance here to talk about why this is important and why the government needs to actually start getting this right.
Okay, so we seem to be able to do it when it comes to gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to slam that work, because trying to address gender-based violence, I mean, if we could make any progress on gender-based violence, that would be great. But there's more going on with gender-based analysis and intersectionality than gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And we've got to get our heads around that. Because if wage is only going to pay attention to that one topic, why do we have a department?
And wage, for the unaware, is Women and Gender Equality Canada.
Yeah, Women and Gender Equality Canada. So if the only priority of Women and Gender Equality Canada is gender-based violence, we didn't need a whole department. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so we've got to move beyond that. But wage seems to be unable to focus on any other policy priority than gender-based violence. This is what they fund. And anytime you go in there and start talking to them, we need to develop intersectional analysis beyond that. We need actually broad-based skills in intersectional analysis, particularly in the general policy world. And while there are, little pockets here and there, I dare you to look at any policy school in Canada and find a core course in intersectionality and gender-based analysis. They do not exist, right? There might be, there's electives, and there's professional courses, but the rank and file that we are pushing out on a yearly or by, I can't remember if it's I always get those ones. Anyway, it's either
biennial.
Every year or every 2 years. Why don't we keep it simple? Depending on the program you're in. Yeah. I mean, we're pushing out people who are basically economists without the mathematical training. That is pretty much what policy schools do. And so they're trained in that usual efficiency, equity, administration, right? They've got the little policy framework, the little Jack Mince's minions of the world. And they don't have actually real tangible skills in intersectionality and GBA plus, which means they get out there and they don't know what they're doing. And then they'll take like a course at the Canada Policy School. No, what are they called? I always get their acronym wrong. The school in Ottawa that trains people, the Canada School, the Canada.
Blank. Anyway,
the professional school that they'll take a course there, or they might take an online MOOC and something. But it's not like gender-based analysis and intersectionality. It becomes part of how you think and what you are. It's not an add-on, right? It's not something you do after the fact. It has to be the way that you think about policy. It's how you breathe policy and policy analysis. So what you have is a bunch of people at wage, which now I can't remember what it stands for.
Yeah, Women and Gender Equality.
Yeah, so we all just call it wage. So you have people in wage who are able to apply it to a very small set of policies. And then they write things with examples in a very small set of policies. And then it goes out. And so you have somebody that then is working in small business going, well, I don't know how I do this. Or you got somebody working in procurement trying to figure out what this all means, or you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying, right? And then, or you have somebody, God forbid, in tax policy trying to figure out what it means. And
Yeah.
so we have people like me, and I'm not the only one, who
Yeah.
can do this, but we are being ignored because they don't know. They pay lip service to us and they think
Yes.
we're important. But you know what? If you want us to be important, you need to fund us.
Yeah.
Research doesn't just happen. So right now, Wage is not funding researchers like me. You know who's funding researchers like me? I've got two big research projects with the city of Calgary, one on short-term rentals, one on property tax equity. So where is my research going? Certainly not going in GBA Plus anymore, because I've got to go where the funding is going.
Yeah.
And that frustrates me because I had a big proposal. I shopped it around for 3 years and I was unsuccessful in getting funding because to get funding, I need Wage as a partner, and they completely ghosted me.
Yeah.
And I had a team of like 30 researchers and 15 partners. Like I had it. I had it
Yeah.
all, but without Wage, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And I can show you the ghosting that happened, right? And so it's really, really frustrating. The federal government set this as a priority. We've got researchers and academics and partners like people that I can't name now that I've just about started. But, you know, we had big organizations involved.
Yeah.
We were all ready to go with a huge research plan of 7 years. And if the federal government really cared, they'd be at the table, and they're not. And so GBA Plus is important. You have people interested in this. The federal government's got to come to the table. They're not. When the Conservatives win, it's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
notice I said when, not if.
Yes.
When.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that. I hear that. Yeah, and I guess I would just cap that off by saying, I mean, I make this kind of joke in Ottawa circles about how this government pays attention to intersectionality by writing intersectionality in a report, and then that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I totally
They don't do the work.
agree.
They'll mention it, but yeah, that's as far as it goes.
They could have made big changes, and they tripped over their feet on this. And it's incredibly disappointing and very, very frustrating. And they could have really made a name for themselves, but instead the UK is blazing the path instead.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for unburdening with us here today, and we'll do this again.
You betcha. Happy holidays,
Right.
Merry Christmas,
Thank
whatever.
And that's everything for this week. I'm taking the next couple of weeks off, so join us in the new year for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. That's at journo_Dale on Twitter, and journodale _no on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.